Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to your walkthrough for the assignment for this week for MAPL 607, Grassroots Mobilization and Targeting. I'm Dave Ebner, your instructor for this assignment, and today we're going to go through how-to, like a technical how-to use Nation Builder and honestly, Vote Builder if you're attached to a campaign works much in the same way. To use Nation Builder to develop lists and cut turf to send canvassers out. So in the videos for this week, we obviously touched on how door-to-door canvassing is the most effective form of both persuasion and mobilization that you could do. We also talked about a couple of principles in order to set up your staff and canvassers, or set up your staff and volunteers to be effective canvassers. But one of the most important things we can do is to allow those people to have a good time, but also to be, most importantly, be effective out there and then want to come back and do it again for us. And those two things are obviously related, right? Our volunteers want to feel important, but they also want to, not be slogging through the mud, literally or figuratively, when they're out there canvassing for you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen at a couple moments and go through the how-to of how to use Nation Builder to draw and cut turf and get those out to your volunteers or staff. So this episode, I guess, is going to work a little bit like a cooking show, where I kind of will cut ahead to steps I've completed, and then pull out the already proved bread and then get moving. Right, we won't go through that whole proving process, but I will set you up in a situation so you should be able to, I don't know, complete the recipe yourself, I guess, if we're going to extend this overwrought already analogy. So I'll go ahead and just go ahead and start sharing my screen, and then I'll start with the walkthrough. So the first thing that we're going to do as I start to get my screen shared here, the first thing that we're going to do, obviously, is we need a voter file. So this is a sneak preview of what things are going to look like eventually, but let's go back and start with our trusty Ohio voter file. So the cool thing about Nation Builder is that there's some features where you can, they'll provide you with a voter file, like the nationwide voter file, but it also allows you to upload your own files or other files or whatever. So it's got some interesting functionality, and maybe I should actually start there. Let's start with what Nation Builder is. I mean, maybe you've heard the term, or maybe you've been attached to it. You may have heard the word Vote Builder. To me, this seems like just a bit of a public kind of version of Vote Builder, but the functionality and some of the stuff that we're using today is pretty similar to Vote Builder. Nation Builder actually seems like it has a lot more going on, but I haven't gotten that deep into it. So go ahead and find Nation Builder, and the first thing that you're actually going to do is sign up for an account. So there's a free trial thing. I think it's like 2 weeks or something. I'm not sure how punitive it is if you forget. So make sure you do, as you sign up for this, set an alert in your calendar to unsubscribe so you don't get charged for this. But there's a trial period, and it took me like maybe 5-10 minutes to set up. They send you a confirmation email, you reply. So this is again where one of those steps where I'm gonna put away my ingredients and pull out the kind of semi-finished dish here. So I was able to sign up for a Vote Builder account. Like I said, it took 5-10 minutes or whatever, or a Nation Builder account, sorry. And I apologize, I keep switching back to Vote Builder. I'm 4 years sitting in an office where all I looked at all day with Vote Builder has seared it into my brain in a profound way. So you're going to sign up and set up this account, start your free trial right here. Go ahead and do that. And then after you complete those steps, obviously, you'll log into your Nation Builder account. And what you'll do then is, this is your dashboard, and where you're going to really spend all your time for this exercise is over here in the People section. Okay. So I said this is a little bit of a skip ahead. You can already see that I've uploaded a file here, and you can see my people in here. Mr. Brown here from Gallipolis, Ohio. So this will kind of be what it looks like when you get there. But so this is after you've signed up for the account. The first step is to go ahead and download that voter file. As I said, Nation Builder will provide you with one if you give it some time, but it looked like it was like 5 to 7 business days, and we don't need the whole nation right now. So it's fine for us. We're gonna stick with our trusty Ohio voter file, and stick with a I mean, Ohio used to be a lot more swingy in terms of the national case, but I think there's still a lot of important elections locally. So let's stick there. It's also obviously great that they provide it so publicly for us. Okay, so we're going to go in here and we're going to start with something small, right? We're not going to cut the whole state or whatever. So let's start with, I think these county files are actually the smallest chunks. If we look at files, oh yeah, totally. The county vote, the county, and let's find we can find a smaller county. The one I picked up with was Gallia, right? It's just got a few thousand voters. Well, there's a bunch of voters in there, but it's a smaller county. And I kind of I thought the name was cool. So I went with Gallia. You can pick any one of these, but just to warn you now, this process of upload, it takes a little bit. Like you have to leave this one on the oven. Well, I guess marinate it for a while, right? Overnight, right? So once you upload this file, it's not going to populate all the addresses and stuff right away that we need for turf. So I learned this the hard way, right? I uploaded this file. I was super excited to record this video, and then none of the info was there right away. So it took a while for the addresses to populate and that kind of thing. So what you're going to do is kind of like, my recommendation would be to upload this file and then set it overnight or whatever, and then pick up the assignment the next day. So you're going to have a couple of weeks to do this module. So that should be fine. If you can find a smaller one, and maybe it'll go faster, maybe your computer is just better than mine, or maybe their server is less busy. So it might take you a little bit less, but the key is going to be, I'll show you, you'll be able to tell obviously pretty quickly in the exercise whether this process has completed itself. But I will then just a couple of caveats to prepare yourself, but also don't be alarmed when you upload your voter file and the stuff that you need to cut turf doesn't show up right away. It didn't for me. I didn't halfway panic, but I tried to call tech support, and then I just woke up this morning and it was there. It just took a little while for this software. I don't think they're running with the same computing power that you would be on a typical vote builder DCCC or RNC server, right? So you'll download the voter file. Obviously, it looks like this. Open it up. So you can see I've already downloaded the file. It's already on my desktop. It'll come down in a TXT file. Don't mess with it at all. It should be perfectly fine. What you're gonna do then though is go back to your Nation Builder account. Right? Where are we? Oh, this is the front page. I'm gonna close this one so I stop clicking back to it. Okay, let's go back to our Nation Builder dashboard. And what you're going to do at this point is import your voter file. So that we already skipped ahead, so you can see mine here. But what we're going to do is we're going to get import. And then this is also what caught me up. So be careful here. Take a minute or just pause for 1 second. So you want to, this seems pretty, you just want to jump into it, but no. There's a little indication here that specifically, so this could be, you could upload information in a lot of ways to Nation Builder. Like I said, this thing has a pretty there's some pretty cool functionality here that I haven't quite got into, but man, it seems pretty cool, honestly. I'm kind of impressed. It's pretty slow, but it works, right? Okay. So it says here though, if you want to import a voter file specifically, which is what we're doing, we actually want to go here. And there's a little voter file thing up here, as you say. It's just going to move me over here. So we're going to do a voter file, and what you'll do is you'll choose your file, which is just whatever. I'm sure you guys have all done this a million times. We'll find a Gallia. Sorry, I'm not from Ohio. Might be mispronouncing that. Sorry if I'm offending anyone that is. So we see our thing, and then we're going to hit upload CSV. And here's a really critical step. And this is going to be kind of the key to whether you wake up in the morning and that marination has taken effect, whether your cut of meat has absorbed this flavor or not. So you need to do this step. This step is a little tedious, but it's really important. And this obviously is going to be a lesson for you merging data and uploading data. And if you would to add more layers to this, so say you had fundraising data and that kind of stuff to import, all this kind of this sort of merging of files is going to be really critical for you. So this is a little tedious, but take your time with it. It's essential. So what we need to do here is, so as you can see, we've imported this list, and it's kind of giving us a preview here. This is what it looks like. So here's our rows, and here are the information in that voter file. So what we need to do is a couple of things. So first, we need to make sure that each of these voters kind of has their own unique ID. And we're just gonna, so there's the Secretary of State voter ID. And what we want to do here is, what we'll use here is the NGP van, give them the unique ID. We'll just use that for now. So this is the first thing you need in order to upload a thing, is make sure that each voter has a unique ID. So this will help you too with the, like I said, if you're then layering things on top of here, as long as you're sticking to this Secretary of State file as your baseline, all of these voters will have this unique ID, and then you can upload, and you can actually, you'll see down here, let me try to scroll down. You can, there's a functionality where you can, instead of like overwriting, you can just update your current list, right? So it won't change anything there. You can just add new fields to it, but kind of jumping ahead. But as I said, this thing's pretty cool. So what we're going to do here is start here. And then what we need is, so the Ohio voter file is, since this is a county file, it doesn't actually list the county, but that actually ends up being fine. So it still worked for me. But what you need to do is you'll start to populate these fields by labeling them. So county, right? So address, county. And what you want to do here is you want to use this as the registered address. And this is where it will eventually kind of populate into their primary address in Nation Builder. And just make sure you kind of like, so if you're going to do registered address here, make sure all the other address things are also as their registered address versus their mailing address or whatever. Okay. So this, my computer is a little small and my screen is pretty tiny. So this is a little bit annoying, but we're just gonna kind of scroll over here. And what you're gonna do is just go throughout and keep going through these, especially if this is the first time you've uploaded this. So this is gonna be last name, right? You can see how this is going. DOB is on here, but the really critical ones, especially for the purposes of cutting and drawing turf here, are gonna be the address ones. So make sure you get all of the address fields, and I'll just give a couple of tips there. So DOB is there, you'll be able to find those. So obviously this is their street address. Registered address. So I like to just put address up here because these fields, there's a lot of different options for them. And I'm just not totally, I think they'll all work eventually, right? But I just want to make sure that I'm using the right one. So I'm just going to registered address and do address 1. And then I'm going to do the same for, obviously, for the city, the state, the zip code. And that's really it. So you want to get all the voters information. You can add this vote history stuff later if we need to, but we're going to just, for the purposes of this exercise, cut a little bit short. We'll save the frosting for later, right? And we'll just stick with a basic recipe. So just get the address stuff in there. So as I said, state, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So once you do that, you'll then go down here once you get your fields populated, and you'll start the import. Right? Let's see if it'll let me do this. Yeah, so then what'll happen, I hope this won't mess me up or anything because it's just gonna duplicate, right? So as you can see down here, there's updates, there's errors, there's whatever, right? So while this is updating, it says queued for importing, not started yet. If we go ahead and refresh, just like it suggests, you'll see it starts to update. So as I said, this actually this goes pretty quickly. As you can see here, it's like a couple of minutes, 318 seconds or whatever, right? But it did take the server overnight, essentially, to actually get these addresses kind of like populated into the fields that need to be. I don't know if there was something I could have done to make it go faster. I never actually got a hold of customer service yet. I'm a solid B when it comes to technology, like a B student, right? I'm not an A+. So I could be actually being a little bit inefficient here in the way that I'm going about it, but this is guys' entry level in a lot of ways. So as you can see, this will work, but yeah, here we go. So 13 hours later, it seemed to at least, whatever, or at most, it ended up working. There was one error in the thing, but as you can see here, so I was like messing around with this. The added here, I started with a bigger county. It took forever. Then I moved to Gallia. And then as you can see, I just kind of like updated it because the addresses weren't working. So I just did it again, right? But it seemed like I just needed to be patient more than keep messing with it. Okay, so it'll go in, and then we're gonna go back and go to people as the next step. So now we've got people. That's great. And what it did for me is when this list first uploaded, it had this voter information, but it didn't have their address right here. It wasn't pulling up yet. But what would happen was when I would go in, you can mess with each voter, right? Mess around with each voter. Has his exact address, right? If you go in here, there's stuff about location. And there you go. Right. This is his exact location. This is going to come up on the map. And this is what you want to be seeing before you get to the cut turf part. So this is your sign that the thing is done and ready to go in the oven or whatever, right? The maps will look like this. So for me, it took a while for the maps to look like this. I would just look at the voter and this information would be here, but it wouldn't have been, like I said, it wouldn't have like filled in the fields. And you'll be able to tell, right? Because what we're going to do now is change from single person view. So this is our full list. Like this is all the voters that we have. We can make smaller lists, and this will actually let me walk through this. So this will be really effective for you to cut down the size of the files that you're dealing with. So a lot of times when you're cutting turf, you'll just want to like break off small towns and do them piece by piece. You're not going to be able to cover the whole city or whatever in a day. So you can break down things by zip. So maybe if I do it like this. So I'll do a new list. I'll just name this one class exercise. You can see I've already been kind of screwing around in here. Let's go to work. Let's try it again. Let's just go with list number 1. Not sure what was going on there. So as you can see here, you have I made just a small list. I added a couple of voters to this. And the way you do this is, let me actually show you how to do it. Bradley's here. Add to or remove from list, right? Oh, there it goes. So we can select our list, select multiple lists. Oops, clicked away. Let's go back to people. Now if we look at our class exercise list, there's Bradley in Gallipolis. And then, so once you can make a list if you want to for this. It's not necessarily, I had you pull up that smaller file just in case, but it might be a good idea to get comfortable using this list feature, right? Because it'll help you with, it's a really functional way to kind of break down your tasks into pieces. So let me see if I can do something like funny here and create like a small list. Let's look by people with my name. There's 1,000 voters with my name. Okay. I already feel a little bit narcissistic by doing that. So let's pick a different name. All right, we got 297 Rogers. Interesting. People are being added. Rogers are being added to the list. Rogers. Okay, so now let's go to our list. We just made a new one. So like, as you can see, this thing just takes a minute to kind of like, it just takes a minute, honestly. So it's not going, it's not going at light speed. Sometimes we just have to kind of like control R, refresh. Let's see. All right, there's Roger. Lots of first name and last name Rogers. We weren't specific. Okay, so what we can do now is switch over to map view. So you can do this from the people thing too, from the people tab. Let me just give you another screen here. So if you just go to the our kind of front page for people, we can also do this over here. We can switch to map view. I'll show you both, but this is actually easier now that we're in our list, right? We've narrowed down our kind of our Rogers. So what we can do is switch to map view. And sometimes it takes a second. Here we go. So now we have on the physical map, and this is the thing that takes a while overnight in order for like the map to read your addresses and fill in the Google like coordinates or whatever, right? It took a while for the server to go. And as you see, the server is just a little slow. And we can not blame them for that, considering that they've really made this public and really made it easy on us. Okay, so we have a high concentration of Rogers in Galia, as we indicated, right? We uploaded our files. We have some stray Rogers in other places. But as you zoom in, we start to go from those larger bubbles, right, to these individual targets. And each one of these little dots is going to be a Roger. And I apologize if you can hear in the background. Of course, I picked the perfect time to record when the landscaping service is here to cut the lawn for the apartment complex. So I apologize for the droning in the background, but we're almost done here. Or at least they'll go by and cut other pieces of the lawn, I guess. So we can go ahead and zoom in here, and here's Roger King, right? We clicked on one dot, and this will actually just pull us back to the guy's voter file thing, and we can make all sorts of changes here. And this is actually really great. And Vote Builder is a little bit of a different interface, but here is where you can add. So we can think back to that lecture from yesterday about managing volunteers or making the most out of your data, right? This is where you plug and track all this stuff in, right? Okay. So we can make a lot of notes here about our relationship with the person, about their network, about their finances, all this kind of stuff. And it really is kind of like open-ended in the sense that, you know, you're typing here and then you can add whatever you want. There's some drop-down menu stuff, but not a lot. A lot of it is really cool because you can just like add in the contents of your conversation, like, oh, had a great chat, said call back, we'll probably come in this weekend to volunteer, check back on Friday about schedule or something, right? So then you can, next time somebody goes to call this person, you can almost like pick up that information and it becomes a source of institutional knowledge instead of like, oh, me, Dave, has a list of volunteers. They know me, I know them, but nobody else really knows a lot about them and they don't know a lot about anybody else. That can be an effective way to build a relationship. But over the course of a campaign, if you're keeping good and effective notes, like your coworker or your colleagues can pull up that thing and basically have a good idea about that relationship with that voter or that volunteer. And you don't have to start from scratch. You can kind of see like, oh, they prefer these hours or call this time, or like something as simple as like, I used to make notes like, oh, has kids, so mention like that the turf is family friendly, or that there's snacks that day, or that, you know, I don't know, you'll have the bouncy castle at the campaign office. I don't know, right? But there are things that you can do to, like I said, build institutional knowledge and use this technology. So Nation Builder, you can do it in here, but in Vote Builder, you can do it as well to build a source of, like I said, institutional knowledge for your campaign, so that if somebody's out sick or you're just overlapping responsibilities, or, you know, somebody's at lunch and a volunteer calls in, you can pull up that list of notes and you can have a lot of information about those people, so you can avoid yourself a bunch of awkward or just useless conversations, right? Okay. So back to the principle now that the leaf blowers have gone by. So let's go back to our Roger list. Okay, let's go back to map view. Okay, now let's zoom back in. Oop, that was risky. Zoom out. Oh yeah, we zoomed in on the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, great. So let's go back to Gallia. So here's what the turf is going to look like. And like I said, as you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, you get closer and closer and closer and more detailed and more detailed and more detailed. And these twos indicate that there's two voters at this household, right? Husband and wife, roommates, kids, whatever, right? Two voters living at this household. Actually, a lot of times, depending on how up to date your voter file is or the kind of neighborhood you're dealing with, like, you know, if you're canvassing in a downtown neighborhood, people just move in and out a lot, or on campus, right? People move all the time. You get multiple people registered at the same address, and maybe they'll both live there, but maybe not. But this is just more kind of hands-on thing. So the thing that really becomes cool here is that, so here's obviously this visual representation of exactly where our voters are, like from any sort of perspective, which from a strategic standpoint, you can really look at, especially because you can weed your list, right? So if you were to sort by just your supporters or just sort by non-supporters and represent that visually, geographically, that could kind of inform of some of your thinking about the campaign in general. But specifically, we're gonna look at this like this tactical GeoTV operation, and we're gonna cut some turf for our canvasser. So this is your exercise, right? Now I'll write down some instructions as well, but this is a walkthrough for it, and what I'll have you do is I'm gonna have you cut 5 different turfs for your canvassers, and turf. Especially for a volunteer, so let's focus on that. So we're gonna cut some turf for a volunteer. And what you want to have is, depending on the person or the density of the turf, is about 50 targets on here. So 50 is a pretty, is a low number, right? I would give, anybody 50 doors. So what you want to do here is, even if you have somebody come in that is like, oh yeah, I'm going to be out here all day, right? Or I could do more doors than that. You just give them a couple different packets, right? But you still want to cut packets that are in these kind of like 50 door, 50 target increments. For a lot of reasons, it makes it manageable. But then if you lose one, or if somebody doesn't complete one, you're not losing a whole 250 special turf that you cut for someone. Don't worry about that kind of thing. Just, like I said, give people 2 pieces if they want another one, right? So we're going to cut turf, and the easiest way to do this is with this turf cutter tool. It makes it really simple. So you just kind of, you click on turf cut, and then this will turn blue, right? And that's how you know you're in, and you have this little crosshair, and now you know you're in turf cutting mode. So I did this kind of silly exercise with Rogers, but if you just broke down by zip code, so that's probably the more appropriate thing to put in that search field, would be a zip code in particular. Then you can pull up all the voters for that zip code. But I guess I'll just keep going like this. So you can just click, you just point and click. So so I think double click first. Yeah, so double click first, and then you get a point, and then you're gonna create the rest of the points to kind of complete this, this circle. Or sorry, this square. You're gonna go here, and then the last one should be a double click too. Oh, so this got a little weird. I think I missed that last click, so let's start over. Oh, there it is. There's my point. So I can point and drag here. All right, so as you can see here, this is not a super concentrated area. I just pulled up people with the name Rogers. So we have about 15 doors here, and this is a really big neighborhood, but imagine we're zoomed in here. And what I want to do is just incorporate more targets then. 15 targets is not nearly enough. So let's say we're going to drive this turf or something like that, just for the sake of argument. So there we go. So now you can see that there's 35 targets or so in here, and let's say that's good enough, and we'll just kind of we'll scoop these last 2 guys in here as well. So now we have 37 targets. This is a big turf. So say this was like a really kind of targeted persuasion operation where you have specific information about the Rogers in your district and you're going to target them, right? Okay. So we'd usually be more zoomed in here, and if we can do that, you can see that you'll get down to as far as the street level, and you can cut turf just based on streets. All right. So what we do here is then we can right click on our territory, or just click on your territory, and you can save this list. So let's say this is turf 1. Go ahead and save your list. We'll click there. Every person has been mapped. So then we can go to print sheets, and we're going to use the sheet theme for a walk sheet. So let's go to download sheet. generate sheet. Takes a minute. It's not where I wanted it to go. Generate sheet. Oh, here we go. Now it's finished. As I said, this thing takes a little patience. You can tell I'm a little bit of an impatient person. I'm just over here clicking around. It just takes a second. Now it says download. And now you have a walksheet. And on this walksheet, first, this is awesome. So this didn't, man, we've come a long way since the last time I pulled the walksheet from Vote Builder. It has this map right on top, which is great. It has all the different streets included on here. So this is one of those cool things that, like, if you're out there walking around, sometimes it's like tough to read your walksheet or relate it back to the map. But what's cool now is you'll be walking around and you'll be like, oh, this is Ash Street. And then you can pull back to your sheet and it's like, oh, where are all my guys on Ash Street? And now you can pull that up. This makes it really, really cool for your canvassers. As a key for all the terms that are on the walksheet, right? And then this is going to be also be a tick sheet, right? So it's their walk list and their tick sheet as well. So our first guy on First Street, Roger Banfield. We don't know a lot about him. Let's see. So we didn't include a lot in our upload of the voter file. I did a pretty bare bones one, right? So usually you'd have a lot more. So there's partisanship, there's DOB, and that would all the stuff that you populate and you upload from that voter file will end up here and be demographic info for your canvassers. So the cool thing here is, so it has that unique ID too, as you'll see. So this will be good for when you're databasing, you're gonna have to return and put information in. So it has this address, obviously, or their address. And the rule to have is a thing for canvassers to click, right? Not home, refused, inactive, moved, deceased, sadly, and don't speak the language. So this would be like, and in this kind of case, like you might want to build something in. So obviously, like, well, not obviously, but a lot of times this will happen where you don't speak the language of the person at home. You want to indicate here which language that is, and I would recommend training you and your canvassers to do that. And don't just put like, I don't know, not English. That's first of all insensitive, but not good enough, not helpful. So try to put like, oh, speaks Spanish, speaks Portuguese, speaks German, or whatever, right? Then you have your traditional support level. So 1 is good, 5 is bad, 3 is in the middle. And their vote method, right? And then, oh, this is cool. So I mentioned this yesterday in the lecture about how it's always great to train your canvassers to ask for volunteers. This is by default doing it. And you ask them if they're a supporter, right? You train to ask all your ones if they'd be willing to volunteer. And then if they say yes or no, this has a cool thing. So to collect their email and then to maybe just make a note like, oh, said they could walk, said they could call, that kind of thing. So this is really awesome. So you can just print this out and hand this to, and put it in a manila envelope or a plastic envelope and hand it out to your canvassers. So the assignment for today is going to be to use Vote Builder, or sorry, Nation Builder, create an account in Nation Builder, upload your voter file, give that a minute to populate the addresses. Once it's effective, pull up a map view, it'll start to automatically, at first it'll just say addresses aren't accurate or whatever. So I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what I was looking at for a long time when I first uploaded the file. So this isn't the list. This is just my whole kind of file. It just takes a second. So where it says here is 78 people are not mapped because their primary address. When you first upload your file, it'll say like 9,000 people are unmatched, and you won't see this geographic location here, right? So as you can see, I've uploaded a couple different voter files at this point. And this might be a good walkthrough to look at, just to take a look at what some denser turf looks like. So this is by default. So I haven't done any of this. This is just what it looks like when I uploaded it. It already kind of tranches it off for you into some geographic kind of locations. And I'm not sure if this is weeding by zip code or township or whatever. Maybe we'll see when we zoom in a little bit further. Okay. So now we have, this is a really densely cut area, right? I didn't really narrow this list down at all. So we can zoom in even a little bit further. And now you can see when we're cutting turf, we're going to be able to develop like a really walkable neighborhood with a ton of targets on it, right? So let's go back to turf cut. Let's see if I can be a little bit more, get my old skills back. So when I draw turf, I like to kind of make sure I try to sometimes get, I'm gonna start over here, to kind of pick up these stragglers out here. Rather than leave these couple stragglers out here and not be on no turf that you cut, just throw them on there because people can kind of drive, they can get to them on their way in or their way out, or maybe it's just kind of like not as far away as it looks from the turf, but it's one of those things where your canvassers are mostly going to hit the densely populated stuff. So let me just get a little bit better with this turf thing. Okay, so we want one there. I'm going to go up here. And you can just point. I am going to cut this here. And I'm going to include this street, but not this kind of other cluster of neighborhoods back here. There we go. So as you can see, that's at least too many, right? That was 152. So we're gonna narrow this area down. Anyways, you can see all the different ways that we can mess with this. My computer's running a little low on battery. We're also running a little long on time, and this is more just your arts and crafts. You'll start to figure out the clicks here. So the assignment is to cut 5 turfs with about 50 or so targets in each turf from the voter file that you won. Go ahead. You can save those as PDFs. So you don't have to actually physically print them out, obviously, but save those as PDFs, and you could upload those to Canvas as part of the assignment. I think they'll come out as one file if you cut 5 turfs in one thing. So it should be just one PDF that you can upload as your completed assignment. Okay, I am gonna wrap up there. This is a really powerful tool. It's pretty intuitive, but it just takes a minute. It's a little slow on the uptake to upload information and that kind of stuff. So just give it a little bit of time, be a little bit patient, but go ahead and have some fun and play around with it. It's a pretty useful tool. All right, I will go ahead and unshare my screen. So thanks for joining me. That was Turf Cutting 101 using Nation Builder. Works pretty much the same in Vote Builder, some other forms of the same kind of technology. But Nation Builder is free, so go ahead and sign up for that account. The trial period, remember to cancel before you get charged. Upload the Ohio voter file. Go ahead and look at map view, cut those turfs, print them out as the PDF, and get ready for your imaginary canvassers to come in and start getting you some votes. All right, thanks, and I'll wrap there.